Hello and welcome. I'm Jan Watson, and along with our trip scholar, Kendall Sharp, and our special guest, Charles Chuck Taylor, we are here to tell you about the basic program's Spring Break in Greece travel study program and to address your questions. I'll start with an overview of the program and the application process. Then we'll hear from Kendall, who will tell us what he has planned for us in our time in Greece. Next, Chuck, who traveled to Greece with the basic program in 2019, will tell you about his experience. That should all take about 25 minutes, and then we'll turn to your question. Our program tonight will end no later than 7 p.m. Because there are quite a few of you here this evening, we'll start with taking your questions through the chat function. I imagine everyone knows where to find that, but it's at the bottom of your Zoom window. You click on chat, type in your question or comment, and hit send. We recommend that you use speaker view during the program. Your view controls are at the top right of your Zoom screen. I want to begin by recommending that you visit our Spring Break in Greece webpage. You will find helpful information such as advanced reading list, topics for discussion sessions, an itinerary, as well as information about what's included, accommodations, fees, traveler requirements, and the cancellation policy. You can find the link to the Spring Break in Greece webpage in the chat. And starting tomorrow, November 15th at 8 a.m., you will find the link to the program application on the webpage. And more about that later. Our partner in Greece is the Athens Center, and our relationship goes back to the old summer session traveling academy for high school students that was led by basic program instructors. In 2017, basic program ran the first spring break in Greece for students in the 4-year program, and again in 2019. The pandemic interfered with our planned returns to Greece, until recently when we visited Athens with a group of basic program students. The March program provides an opportunity for you to see firsthand many of the historic places you've encountered in the basic program core curriculum readings, including locations outside of Athens and across the Peloponnese Peninsula. Visiting the ancient sites and museums with a skilled Athens Center archaeologist and a basic program instructor will bring out the relationship between the sites and the texts and make it come alive. And traveling with others who have read and discussed the same texts elevates the experience and strengthens the bond between the travelers. In addition to our archaeologist and Kendall, our on-site team will include a bilingual representative from the Athens Center and me. So the program is well managed and you will be looked after. While in Athens, we will stay in the neighborhood near the Acropolis Museum. Our hotel is on a quiet street with nearby shops, a pharmacy, restaurants, and coffee and wine bar. Outside of Athens, our hotels will be located near the sites we will visit. You will especially enjoy staying in Naplio, a resort town situated on the Agate Gulf with lemon trees lining the streets, a busy harbor, and overlooked by the Venetian-built Palmiti Fortress high above. Breakfast is provided each morning at all hotels. Each day after breakfast, we will walk or bus to a site accompanied by our archaeologists who will lead us and lecture. Both the archaeologist and Kendall will add context and answer your questions. Afterwards, we'll go to a taverna for lunch and then visit another site. And on some days, enjoy a discussion session with Kendall or have some free time. We will change locations several times and traveling light is highly recommended. For the first time, Spring Break in Greece will visit Pylos and Olympia. Kendall is keen to have you see the Palace of Nestor and consider gods, games, and gifts in Olympia and in Delphi. What's included? Your tuition includes hotel accommodations in double rooms, daily breakfast and lunch, plus 2 dinners, archaeologist-led site and museum tours, a series of discussion sessions led by Kendall Sharp, entry to all sites and museums, coach transportation for excursions outside Athens, and support services provided by the Athens Center. In addition, we'll schedule a pre-trip seminar and a reception so you can meet your fellow travelers. Single travelers may book by paying a single supplement. Who goes on the trip? Here's the gang from 2019. Many of these students were in the same cohort and traveled during their year 2 spring break. Chuck will tell you more about their experience. All basic program students and alumni of the 4-year core curriculum program are eligible. Partners are also welcome, whether they are BP students or not. We will begin taking applications tomorrow, November 15. If you go to the webpage for Spring Break in Greece tomorrow morning, you will find a red button for application. You click on that red button for application and the form will open. You fill it out online and securely submit it. There is no application fee. You will be contacted quickly on the status of your application. And if accepted, you'll be given a link to follow, and then you can make your deposit for the trip. Each person must fill out an application form. If you're booking a double, there is space to write in the name of your roommate. The trip is limited to 17 students. You are forewarned that the trip requires considerable walking and navigating ancient archaeological sites and stairs, as well as standing to listen to on-site lectures. You may have questions about COVID-19. Travel and medical insurance are highly recommended. The University of Chicago does not offer this type of insurance, nor are we experts in that field. Currently, neither Greece or the US have any traveler restrictions, but participants should stay abreast of travel and entry requirements. Greece is currently at the lowest level of US State Department travel advisories, level 1, exercise normal precautions. During the trip, should a participant test positive for COVID-19, they must self-report and agree to follow the instructions given by the U Chicago COVID response team, which may include isolating from the group. The Athens Center will assist an ill student with basic needs and medical attention as needed. Participants should be aware that treatments available in the US may not have the same availability in Greece. For more information on the U Chicago COVID-19 precautions, please visit the Go Forward website. You can find the link in the chat. Okay, now I'd like to turn things over to Kendall Sharp. Kendall is the Cyril O'Hoole Chair and an instructor in the basic program, and he holds a PhD from the University of Chicago's Committee on Social Thought and a BA from the college. Kendall has extensive experience with teaching, including as an assistant professor in the Department of Classical Studies at the University of Western Ontario. His research and publishing focuses on Plato's dialogues as literary expressions of the philosophical life. His teaching has included Greek and Latin languages, classics and translation, and both classical mythology and ancient Greek science. So, Kendall, would you like to say a few words?
Thanks, Jan. And let me play this from start. All right, so that's visible to all? All right. So my role, as Jan has said, hi, I'm Kendall. I know, I think most of you, so I'm an instructor in the program, and I'm the chair. But on this trip, my role will be to serve as the trip scholar. And so I've set a reading list for advanced readings before you get there, before we travel, I should say. In January and February, we'll have a meeting or two via Zoom before we leave, and we'll talk about the readings, and we'll talk about the intellectual stuff. And then while we're in Greece and we're moving from site to site, we'll have 3 different sessions, discussion sessions that will, conditions permitting, resemble a basic program classroom. And I'll share, the readings in just a moment. All the readings are taken from the 4-year curriculum. Let's walk through the readings briefly and discuss how they're related to the locations that we'll be visiting. Oh, by the way, what you're looking at right there, this is one of the places we'll visit. This is Delphi. And this is actually, you're looking the wrong way on the sacred way. Back in antiquity, you would process this way towards the camera when you were headed to the Temple of Apollo from Athens or wherever. For our first discussion, the reading, and hang on, I need a little screen management so I can see this text. I need to move my little Zoom toolbar without selecting. Okay, there we are. Our first discussion section will still be in Athens. I'm calling this, I had to give these discussions names, which is a little unnatural. So they're not they're lecture sounding names, but we'll have a discussion. And we're going to discuss Athens, a place, a goddess, and a way of life. Our readings actually will discuss mostly the way of life, specifically citizenship, but also the place and the goddess. So have a look here. If you're still in the 4-year program, you will have not gotten to Thucydides yet. Well, unless you're a 4th year. But the second one there, everybody's already. That should be on your shelves or saved on your device of choice. So we're going to read and discuss Pericles' funeral oration, and then we're going to talk about also the defense speech of Socrates. Both of these texts deliver a portrait, not at all a snapshot, what I almost said, but it's a portrait, an aspirational portrait of what it means to be not just a citizen of a Greek polis, but specifically Athens. One of them is good for morale if you're an Athenian. The other one is not so much. So we'll discuss those two, and we're going to discuss them in context, which is going to be fun. And let's see here. I've got a photo from Athens here for you. So this is the Parthenon. This is from the back, though. If you look just to the left of the guy in the hat, you can see the propylaea. That's the entry point. And do I have another? Oh, yes, there's me on the left. At the Theater of Dionysus, sitting in the judge's chair, and another up close Parthenon shot. And then here's one. This is from the side where you can see the drums built into the side of the hill. Those are significant. We'll talk about them in just a moment. Remember those drums, though, that are built. They look like teeth. In a smile in Athens. Then discussion 2 will be on the road. And I've titled this one At Home in Pylos with Nestor. So if you've done year 2 of the program, or if you're in year 2, you will read the Odyssey in January. And book 3 is set entirely in Pylos. And this is Telemachus is visiting Nestor and his kids. And there's I'll let you do the reading, but it gives you an idea of how Pylos may have appeared in deep antiquity. So what's significant about Pylos, and what's exciting to me, it also counts for Mycenae, is that these are Bronze Age sites, which means that they're about 800 years older than the Athens that we'll be looking at, than the Delphi that we'll be looking at, than the Olympia that we'll be looking at. Anyway, so that's exciting, and I'll have a whole lot more to say about these, about Pylos and Nestor. Here's they've had the most important discovery in Greek archaeology in the last 50 years was at Pylos, and it's the so-called Griffin warrior. And here is one of his gewgaws that they found in his tomb. This is very small. It's just like 3 or 4 centimeters across. It's a cylinder seal, or it's not a cylinder seal. It's just a seal. So it's very tiny, but it's engraved. And I have here's what the photo, or here's what the engraving looks like when it's just an etching. So this is from like 1400 BC. And there are many interesting features there, such as the helmet and those kilts that the men are wearing. But more on that in March. Discussion 3, God's Games and Gifts at Olympia and Delphi. So we'll be on the road, and we'll be visiting both Delphi and Olympia. These places played really important roles in the ancient world. They were religious shrines and sanctuaries, but they were also the sites of the quadrennial games. So the Olympic Games, that's not a surprise to you. But the reason it was every 4 years was that there were 3 other major games in Delphi. They were called the Pythian Games. That was one of them. So we're going to prepare for our visit. We're going to read Herodotus from the winter quarter of year 1. Excuse me. I've selected book 1, a lot of book 1. It's not all of book 1, but that will give you a real picture of Delphi. Not just stories about the place, but why it's set up the way it is, and it'll give you an idea of all the loot and the treasure that would be donated there and just be sitting around. In book 6 is Herodotus covers the Battle of Marathon. And there's a very, very special artifact at Olympia. It's one of my favorite pieces of ancient Greece, photo to come. And in book 8, Herodotus tells us the story of when the Persians in their first invasion, or it's not their first invasion, it's before they'd been run out, and Xerxes orders the Acropolis, everything up there, including the Parthenon that was under construction, to be utterly destroyed. And that's a very important fact for your visit to Athens, but I'm going to conceal its importance right now. So I'm done talking, but I just have to show some images here. The 2 guys on the left, on the right, one of them coming out of the ground. This is Cleobus and Biton from book 1 of Herodotus. And that story is a lot of fun, especially when you see these guys face to face, well, live. They're a lot taller than you. Now, this is the most special artifact. This is the helmet dedicated after Marathon, the battle, by Miltiades, the main Athenian general. And if you look on the left-hand image, you can kind of see the M. It's down to the chin, closer to the chin, but it says Miltiades up through the jawline. And so this is actually this is the helmet he wore when he led the hoplites down the hill at Marathon, and after they won the battle, he took it to Olympia to dedicate it to Zeus. And then, that's the end of my slideshow. So those drums that I showed you earlier that looked like teeth, those were pieces of the Parthenon that were destroyed by the Persians. When the Greeks rebuilt, they put the ruins in the side of the wall. All right. Well, that's all I'm good for tonight.
All right. Well, thanks, Kendall. You've got us excited, I think. And now we're going to hear from Chuck Taylor. Chuck is a 2022 graduate of the basic program, and he traveled with us to Greece in 2019 as a year 2 student. He kept a thorough and well-written travel journal with great photos of the trip. I mean, seriously, he documented our time in Greece. So Chuck, I'll turn things over to you.
Thanks, Jan. I found our trip to Greece to be a wonderful experience. And even though I had been to Greece, Athens, and especially Crete, a half dozen times or so before, I found this to be far more rewarding. And I wanted to share the reasons for it. And for those of you that are going, maybe it'll provide some guidance to where to do your preparation. The most important thing, I thought, was that it integrated real life experience with our class reading. It made the abstract reading sometimes kind of strange, much more tangible. In back of me here in the virtual background is our archaeologist and guide named Michael, that I'll probably refer to several times, plus a couple of other students and spouse from the class. But in the background is the cell where Socrates was kept and where he drank his hemlock. That to me is the sort of thing that brought it to life. I found too that the ruins that there were, they stimulated the imagination. The handouts that we had, and I presume you'll be getting, had maps that were helpful. And with closely detailed diagrams of what the different rooms were, or what the different parts of whatever it is we're reviewing were. It's nothing that anyone would hold you accountable for, but it made it kind of interesting that each person could follow up what they wanted. The ruins, of course, the Parthenon that you see here, but viewed this way, it's the same thing. It looks kind of, I find, looks kind of neat, and I liked it. Liked that I could walk on the same stones that Socrates and Aristotle walked on. It's actually a fairly small area. So unquestionably, with the time that was spent there, it touched history for sure. And I found like that the ruins of Mycenae, the city of Agamemnon, to be really also very exciting. As you heard, it's much older than Athens, and the source of the Greeks in the Trojan War, and the site of the Oresteia that you have read or will read. The primitiveness comes out very clearly. So with the Oresteia, it's the difference between the Athenian period and the Mycenaean period becomes clear. I found too that the visits with the culture and archaeology fleshed out our classroom reading. The classroom reading were mostly the classics, and when we discussed it, and in my classes and probably yours, we were supposed to restrict our discussion to the readings. It isn't always so restricted, but generally it was. And the outside material really makes it much clearer. We read from Pausanias, who was a tourist from 100 to 200 Christian era, gave fascinating, I thought, accounts of the same places where we visited. Wrong one. Example of that is the Karameiko, which is a cemetery right near the Agora, and the city walls. I don't know if you can see that, but the more or less horizontal wall in the background is the city wall of Athens, and you can see the road to Thebes and elsewhere in the traditions of the city, laying out why Pericles said why our city is worthy of admiration, was given right here, and it gives some substance to it. I thought we also visited several museums in the area that were superb, and also fleshed it out in ways that I think it illuminated the reading that we had. The other things that that were kind of neat were the trireme boat that gave Athens the control over the sea, and it's really its power in those days. It was also really interesting. It would never make it into the great readings as such. The place that I found really wonderful, and I see were emphasized, is Delphi, the traditional site of mystic predictions and interpretations, prophecies. And you can see right here, unlike what was in Athens, that there's a visceral pagan element in this. I found it really helpful in reading and understanding the Dionysian versus the Athenian element in the ancient culture. The lecturers on the sites that we visited were experts in culture and archaeology. So it all didn't just flesh out, it really gave substance to what we're reading. Important here, I think, is meeting people, fellow students, to form a community. And there's 17 people in our group, probably 10 stuck together as a class for the next 4 years. It was like pretty much like a grade school or high school friends who helped one another, knew one another. In class, we would be able to say, oh, X or Y knows more about this. And we could call on them for their interpretations. 4 of us that went on this trip are still together in the class I'm taking now. There's an aspect of this too that is kind of nice. While I've emphasized how this is so helpful for the class, really it was a beautiful, nice vacation as well. This is from So Union. It's a temple for Poseidon, but you can see how lovely it is. And while I've traveled a lot, I'm not one for vacations. I've hardly had taken any vacations nor tours, but both of them were extremely helpful and enjoyable here. And finally, I would, I think I've used up my time. I just wanted to recommend that you don't put off the reading until the day before or reading it on the airplane. It's really helpful to have done that and to have it, even take the reading with you on a portable computer or iPad so that you can refer to it as you go along. So those are my main impressions. I sent my notes to Jan. They're on a Google site, a Google Drive site. And if you find that you're interested in that, pursuing them, you're welcome to read them. Just see her for the link.
Well, great. Thanks, Chuck. That's very generous.